Once, a single company ruled the entire world from inside your pocket. One in every 2 phones on the planet carried its name. It was the most valuable company in Europe, a titan that looked utterly unbreakable. And then, in just 6 short years, it crumbled into dust, not because an enemy was stronger, but because the king refused to believe he could fall. This is the rise and the fall of Nokia. Our story begins not in a lab, but in a cold Finnish forest. In 1865, Nokia was born as a humble paper mill on the banks of a river. For 100 years it made paper, then rubber boots, then cables and tires. An unremarkable little company in a small, quiet country. Nothing special at all. But in the 1980, its leaders made a wild bet on something invisible. Radio waves. While others made things you could hold, Nokia bet on talking through thin air. In 1987, it built one of the first true mobile phones, a heavy brick that cost a fortune. A new kind of network was spreading across the world, one that could carry any voice, anywhere. Nokia saw the future before almost anyone else, and it ran straight at it. The little forest company was about to conquer the earth. The 1990s arrived, and the world went wireless, and Nokia was ready. It made phones smaller, cheaper, and tougher than anyone thought possible, and it gave the world a promise. 2 simple words that became legend: connecting people. That famous ringtone rang out on every street, in every country, 1 billion times a day. Nokia was no longer selling phones. It was selling a feeling, connection, freedom, the future. Money poured in like a river. The forest company became a global superpower. And then, in the year 2000, Nokia created a legend that would never die. The Nokia 3310. Small, tough, and nearly impossible to destroy. You could drop it, throw it, run it over, and it simply refused to break. Its battery lasted for a week, and inside it lived a tiny green legend, the game Snake. It sold over 120 million units. It was on desks in every home on Earth. To this day, people call it the greatest phone ever made. Nokia was untouchable, but Nokia did not stop there. It turned the phone into everything. It put real cameras into phones, and suddenly, the whole world became a photographer. It built phones that played music, phones that gamed, phones shaped like lipstick and candy. Owning a Nokia was not just useful, it was cool, it was status, it was identity. In the villages of Africa and the cities of Asia, one name meant phone: Nokia. Its factories ran day and night, churning out over 1 million phones every single day. By the mid-2000s, Nokia had reached a height no phone maker had ever seen. It controlled over 40% of every phone sold on the planet. It sold more phones than its next 3 rivals combined. 1 billion people around the world woke up and reached for a Nokia. It was the crown jewel of Europe, a national treasure, a symbol of a whole country's genius. Nokia stood at the very summit of the mountain, and from the summit, there is only one way to go. Far away, across the ocean in California, a rival was preparing something strange. In January 2007, on a stage, a man held up a small slab of glass. No keyboard, no buttons, just a screen you touched with your fingers. It was the iPhone, and it would change what a phone could be forever. The whole world leaned in and gasped. Everyone understood, everyone except one. Inside Nokia's headquarters, the kings looked at the iPhone and they laughed. It has no keyboard, they scoffed. The battery is weak, it will never sell. It's a toy for the rich, they said. A tiny niche. We are the real phone makers. They were the biggest, the richest, the most powerful. Why should they fear a newcomer? It is the oldest mistake in history. The mighty never believe they can fall. And here is the cruelest twist of all. Nokia had seen the future first. Years before the iPhone, Nokia's own engineers had built touchscreen smartphones. They even had an early version of the App Store. the very idea that would win the future. But inside the giant, bureaucracy crushed every bold idea. Committees killed the future. The engineers begged. The bosses said no. Too risky, too different, not the Nokia way. So Nokia buried its own future in a drawer and let a rival dig it up and win. For the real enemy of Nokia was never Apple. It was Nokia itself. The company had grown so vast that its own departments waged war on each other. Managers guarded their little kingdoms. Good ideas were killed just to spite a rival team, and a culture of fear took hold. Bad news was hidden because messengers were punished. So the leaders at the top saw only sunshine, while the ground beneath them caught fire. An empire is never conquered from the outside. It rots quietly from within. Then came a second blow. A giant named Google gave away a free phone brain, Android. Suddenly, every rival could build a smartphone as good as the iPhone for almost nothing. And apps, millions of them, poured into these new phones. A whole new world. But Nokia clung to its old, aging software, called Symbian, slow, clumsy, and dying. The world had leapt into the future, and the king was still standing in the past. Now the fall began, and it was terrifyingly fast. Customers fled to the iPhone and to Android by the millions. Every month, Nokia's mighty empire shrank. Profits turned to losses. In 2011, a new leader wrote a desperate memo to his own terrified staff. He said the company was standing on a burning platform over a freezing sea. Jump or burn. Nokia had to make a leap, and it chose the wrong direction. Nokia made one last, enormous bet. It joined hands with Microsoft. It threw away its own software and staked everything on Windows Phone. It was a huge gamble, abandoning its past to chase a single partner's dream. The phones were actually beautiful. The cameras were brilliant, but it did not matter because the world had already chosen. And it had not chosen Nokia. The new phones had one fatal flaw. They had almost no apps. No apps meant no users. No users meant no developers. No developers meant no apps. It was a death spiral, and Nokia was caught inside it. The mighty king, who once ruled half the world, now begged for scraps. The greatest phone empire in history was running out of time. In just 6 years, Nokia's share of the smartphone world fell from the top to almost nothing. 40% of the world had become a mere handful of percent. The company that was a national treasure had become a national heartbreak. In 2014, the unthinkable happened. Nokia sold its phone business to Microsoft. The king who once ruled your pocket surrendered his crown and walked away. So why did the greatest phone empire on Earth collapse so completely? It was not one mistake. It was a poison that seeps into every empire that wins too much. Pride. They believed they were untouchable, so they stopped being afraid. Comfort. They were so rich and so slow that bold ideas died in committees. And fear of change. They clung to the world they knew until that world vanished beneath them. Nokia did not lose because a rival was smarter. It lost because it could not imagine losing. Today, the Nokia empire of phones is gone, a ghost of a vanished age. But its story did not truly die. It became a warning, whispered in every boardroom on Earth, because Nokia's fall teaches the most dangerous truth in all of technology. No throne is safe. No empire is forever. The mighty of today can vanish tomorrow. The giants of our own time, the ones in your pocket right now, would do well to remember. Because somewhere, right now, in a garage or a lab, the next storm is already forming. The king who forgets to be afraid is the king who is about to fall. Thanks for watching.